The day of the palace coup. My husband abandoned me and our young son to rush to the king's aid, leaving us to die tragically in the chaos of the rebellion. Everyone in the empire knew he was hopelessly in love with my elder sister. He risked his life to protect her, no matter the cost. And I only understood everything at the moment of my death. Now I've been given a second chance. I'm back on the day our father was choosing a husband for us. Mother held up a portrait of Shun, growing more pleased the longer she looked. Our Shuer deserves to marry the legitimate son of a noble duke's family. One day, he'll inherit the title and bring honor to our name. My elder sister stood timidly to the side, stealing a glance at the portrait. In my past life, she had already secretly promised herself to Shun, but she lied, saying she didn't like him at all, and let our father betroth me to him instead. After the wedding, Shun was ice cold toward me. He even tried to divorce me and take another wife. Meanwhile, my sister had already risen to become a favored imperial consort. The following 10 years, Shun and I loathed each other in our hopeless marriage. In the end, when the coup broke out, I was killed alongside my young son. Our corpses were hung from the city wall, left there for days. Shun, who commanded a powerful army, never showed up. He stayed silent the entire time, just to keep my elder sister safe. 10 years of marriage, and his heart was colder than stone. In the end, it was Prince Jinan, the very one accused of rebellion, who rebuked the soldiers and gave us mother and son a proper burial. Father looked at the portrait and said with satisfaction, Shun truly is a rare military talent. Our Shuer's future will be bright with him. Before he could finish, I suddenly dropped to my knees with a thud. Father, I don't want to marry him. Mother was startled.
Why?
Weren't you just saying a few days ago how much you liked him? Back then, I had caught a fleeting glimpse of Shun at Yefeng Tower, and thought he was a man I could entrust my life to.
But now,
I refused to make the same mistake. I looked at my sister and said slowly, I don't want to steal my sister's beloved. Mother's expression turned icy. She raised her hand and slapped my elder sister hard across the face. You little wretch. I pitted your background and raised you as my own, and now you're trying to steal your sister's husband. You dropped to her knees in a panic. Mother, I didn't. Mother pulled me into her arms and comforted me. Sure, don't worry. Mother will stand up for you. Yu's birth mother was once a courtesan. She died not long after giving birth. Back then, with so few children in the Liu family, they barely allowed her to be registered as the official daughter. Though mother never liked her, she never shorted her in food or clothes. But Liu always had a habit of taking what belonged to me. In my previous life, I was too well protected by our parents to see the dirty tricks she was playing behind the scenes. But this time, I won't be fooled again. Father hesitated, then asked, Ayu, have you and young General Shun been involved in private? Of course Liu wouldn't admit it. I immediately pointed at the handkerchief in her hand. Everyone in the capital knows my sister's embroidery of the 4 gentlemen is one of a kind. Yet young General Shun has the exact same handkerchief. In the last life, Shun would sit in his study every day, staring at that handkerchief and getting lost in memories. He treated it like a precious treasure and kept it under his pillow for years. Men are pathetic like that, obsessed with what they can't have. Hearing this, Mother's expression changed. I knew it. You're just like your mother, seductive and shameless, always going after other women's men. Liu lowered her head so far it almost touched the ground. She had always been cautious and calculating, but she never expected I'd already uncovered her secret with Shun. Mother was furious and was about to use the family whip. I quickly stopped her. Don't be angry, Mother. If my sister and young General Shun truly care for each other, then why not let them marry? Mother poked my forehead in frustration. You really don't get it. The Shun family is a noble military clan. What a marriage this would be. How could you just hand it over? I laughed coldly to myself. That's not necessarily true. Shun was a rare military talent, and he came from an elite, well-connected family. An ideal match on paper. But now, I had my eye on someone else. Prince Jinan, the man who once charged into the capital with just 800 cavalry. In the previous life, he was stripped of his title and exiled to guard the border for years. Yet he still managed to lead troops back, seize power, and take control. If the man I marry can't give me his whole heart, then I'll take one who can give me unmatched power. At least, I'll have the means to protect myself. My elder sister was still kneeling, quietly weeping and protesting her innocence. Mother found her annoying to look at and waved her hand. Enough, enough. Go kneel in the ancestral hall. I threw myself into Mother's arms and acted like a spoiled child. Mother, I just want to stay by your side a few more years. Let elder sister have this marriage instead. She thought I was just being naive and sighed helplessly. You treat her well, but she may not appreciate it. My sister knelt in the ancestral hall all night. The next morning, Shun heard what happened and rushed over in distress. He anxiously came to propose marriage. Father was hesitant at first. After all, Liu might have the title of legitimate daughter, but in truth, she held no real status. But Shun swore before everyone, saying he would love no one but Liu for the rest of his life. I watched it all with cold indifference. He truly was devoted, loving the same woman across 2 lifetimes. Very well. This time, I'll let you have her. But the debts from the last life? I'll collect them all one by one. The elder sister, Liu, got her wish and married Shun. Before she left for her new home, she looked at me with an increasingly complicated expression. Sister, I stole your husband. You don't resent me, do you? I gently helped her put on her hairpin. Of course not, sister. We're family, why would I hold a grudge? She bit her lip and asked reluctantly, the Shun family has a noble title that passes down through generations. Are you really willing to give that up? I picked the brightest rouge and lightly applied it to her cheeks, responding softly, Of course I am. But in my heart, I added, as long as you're prepared to pay for it with your life. Liu looked at me nervously. Sister, do you actually like young General Shun? My elder sister truly lived up to her name as the most talented woman in the capital. She was incredibly smart, still trying to figure out my true motives. I could only act sweet and naive. Sister, ever since we were young, we've shared everything good. If you like him, of course I won't fight you for him. Outside, the wedding procession had arrived. Drums and gongs echoed, the scene bustling with excitement. I placed the red bridal veil over her head and opened the door of her boudoir, sending her off to be wed. From this moment on, our fates would go in opposite directions. In the main hall, I saw Shun again. He had a refined face like carved jade, with sharp brows and starry eyes. Though he came from a long line of generals, he still looked like a noble young man. Countless young ladies in the capital admired him. But in his eyes, there had only ever been Liu. I took a quick glance, then looked away. Mother reluctantly attended the wedding send-off. Then she turned and whispered to me, Sure, your father and I will find you a better match. We won't let that little wench outshine you. I smiled faintly. My marriage would follow a different path. 3 days after the wedding, Liu returned to visit her family. Shun helped her down from the carriage, holding her hand. The two looked so loving, like a match made in heaven. But I couldn't help thinking of my past life. 3 days after I married Shun, he snuck off to meet Liu in secret. When Mother caught them and hinted at her disapproval, I still chose to trust him. Never once did I question anything. Looking back now, I really was a fool. Father was very pleased with the marriage. To him, as long as one of his daughters married into the Shun family, it was a huge advantage. I heard the situation in the northwest is tense. His Majesty is considering sending you to reinforce Prince Jinan, he said. Shun frowned. He had just gotten married, and of course didn't want to go. In my past life, he resented me so much that he practically spent the entire year out on the battlefield, earning countless military merits. Later, he even took command of the Imperial Guards and rose to the position just beneath the Emperor. But in this life, having married the woman he loved, How could he be willing to leave for war? While the men discussed politics in the front hall, it wasn't suitable for women to be present, so I pulled Lu Yu into the boudoir to chat. Sister, you don't know how quiet it's been since you left. I've been looking forward to your visit every day. She couldn't hide a hint of pride in her smile. Now that she was the general's wife, she no longer needed to compete with me. If you miss me, I'll come visit often. I said deliberately, yes, once General Shun goes off to war, you could come live with me again. But I heard the western regions are full of beauties. Who knows if the general might bring one or two back. As expected, Lu Yu immediately felt a sense of crisis. She had used tricks to make Shun Yuzhou fall in love with her. Her heart was far from secure. It had been less than 2 weeks since their wedding, and now he was being asked to lead troops to war. He could be gone a year or more. Anything could happen. I feigned innocence and said, if you ask me if he can avoid going to war, then he should. The Shun family isn't hurting for military merit. Besides, sister, your position in the Shun household isn't stable yet. Having a child early should be your top priority. After all, Lu Yu was only registered under my mother's name. She wasn't truly the legitimate daughter. Though the Shun family wouldn't say it aloud, deep down they looked down on her. If she really wanted to secure her place as the lady of the house, it wouldn't be easy. Sure enough, after hearing my words, she began to panic a little. But from what I hear, both father and father-in-law still hope Yuzhou will lead the troops to the northwest, she said. I gave her a cryptic smile. Then isn't that the same as being a widow while your husband is still alive? Lu Yu bit her lip. These are men's affairs. What can a woman like me say? I teased. They say pillow talk is the most powerful weapon of all. That very night, word came that Lu Yu had thrown a huge tantrum in the Shun household, refusing to let her husband go off to war. She claimed she was afraid for Shun Yuzhou's safety. Father was so angry, he stomped his feet. Such short-sightedness. The noble title may be inherited, but without military merit, it's just an empty name. How could Yu be so foolish? Before father could even go speak with them, the Shun family sent word. Shun Yuzhou had claimed illness and refused the military assignment. He hadn't attended court for over half a month. I sneered inwardly. He really did love her to the bone. Lu Yu had cried, screamed, and threatened suicide. And it worked. I had completely misjudged him in the previous life. Because of all this chaos, the command was reassigned to someone else. Just like that, thanks to Lu Yu's meddling, Shun Yuzhou became a henpecked little general stuck at home. Everyone in the capital laughed at him. Everyone but him. 6 months later, Lu Yu got pregnant, and he became even more tied down. He even started skipping military drills. Mother looked a little gleeful. Who would have thought this General Shun turned out to be such a man with no ambition? I smiled without replying. No one knew better than me what kind of man Shun Yuzhou really was. He only loved superficial glamour, easily bewitched by false tenderness. After Lu Yu got pregnant, her temper worsened. She shouted and hit the servants all day long, causing discontent throughout the Shun household. Sometimes, when Shun Yuzhou was pushed too far, he wouldn't even bother to coax her. So Lu Yu would cry and run back to her family home. I sat by the window, cracking melon seeds, watching this farce unfold. By my calculations, it was almost time. In my previous life, this was about when the famed Prince Jinan returned to the capital. Lu Yu stayed at her maiden home for 2 days before Shun Yuzhou softened. On the 3rd morning, he came to take her home. Before she left, Lu Yu's gaze was full of provocation. Sister, see? Shun Yuzhou still has me in his heart. I responded casually on the surface, but inwardly I thought, so what if he does? The storm that's coming, let's see if he can survive it. Lu Yu deliberately made Shun Yuzhou wait in the corridor for more than 2 hours. Only then did she stroll out slowly. As she walked out, father was analyzing court politics with Shun Yuzhou. The situation is unstable right now. Without military power in your hands, you'll have no leverage when rewards are granted later on. Shun Yuzhou hesitated before responding gently. But I can't bear to leave my wife and child. I sneered inwardly. What a useless man. He'll never amount to anything in this lifetime either. In this life, what I worried about most was the Liu family. In my past life, when the army stormed the capital, my father, being the top civil official, hesitated between the new and old regimes and finally chose to die for his loyalty. This time, I wouldn't allow that to happen. Prince Jinan's rebellion was only a matter of time. Instead of waiting helplessly, it was better to prepare early. I kept dropping hints to father that when the dynasty shifted, he must pledge loyalty to the new ruler. After hearing it too often, father began to suspect. Sure, do you know something? I gritted my teeth and knelt before him. Father, I've long admired Prince Jinan. My parents were shocked. A prince who guards the frontier with no imperial favor. Who knows if he'll ever return to the capital? You like him? Would you really marry into hardship in the borderlands? I clenched my jaw. I won't suffer. Because he's coming soon to seize everything. Father flew into a rage and locked me in my room, declaring he'd arrange a marriage for me within the month. I underestimated his stubbornness. No matter how much I cried or pleaded, he wouldn't give in. Luckily, mother couldn't bear to see me suffer. She gave me silver and a bundle, arranged a carriage, and helped me escape the city. Before I left, she wiped her tears. Mother feels like you're not the same Shua from before, but I believe you have your own judgment. She didn't want me to marry just anyone and waste my life. I hugged her tightly and promised, Mother, I will return safely. She seemed to understand something, nodded with teary eyes, and urged, Go now. I left the capital overnight, not daring to stop, heading straight for Lihuan. By the time I arrived, I collapsed outside Prince Jinan's military tent, exhausted. Along the way, I had spread countless rumors that the Prime Minister's legitimate daughter had eloped for love and gone to Lihuan to find Prince Jinan. With gossip spreading like wildfire, even if Lihuan wanted to deny it, he couldn't. Sure enough, the first person I saw when I opened my eyes was the legendary Prince Jinan himself. He looked at me with a playful gleam in his eyes. The next second, a sharpened dagger was pressed to my throat. Who sent you? He was naturally suspicious, and we'd never met before. Sudden rumors of my infatuation would obviously raise doubts. I stammered to explain, I once saw a painting of Your Highness's Western campaign in my father's study and have admired you ever since. He sneered. When did the capital start circulating my portrait? Indeed, the current emperor feared his power, and tales of his ruthless bloodshed had spread far and wide. When would anyone dare to draw a portrait to glorify his feats? I quickly tried to win some favor for my father. My father deeply respects Your Highness's defense of the frontier and wanted to write a biography in your honor. Only then did Lihuan's expression soften slightly. I finally breathed a little easier. Just as I was about to ask for some water, a general rushed in, wrapped in red silk from head to toe. Your Highness, we big rough men don't know how to deal with this thing. I realized only then. The camp was bustling outside because they were preparing a wedding feast. Your Highness, what's going on? Lihuan swept a glance over the cuts on my hands from the journey. Didn't you just say you've admired me for a long time and want to marry me? What? Changed your mind already? I clenched my teeth. Wasn't this exactly what I had been aiming for? In this life, I wasn't after love. I was after power. Of course I meant it. Lihuan and I were married in the military camp. After the wedding, he submitted a memorial to the capital. Soon, all of Dang knew that the daughter of Minister Liu defied social norms and traveled thousands of miles to find her husband. On the wedding night, Lihuan and I were separated by a folding screen while he studied the sand table all night long. At the sound of the rooster crowing, he asked me what I had seen on the journey from the capital to Lihuan. I said, starving corpses everywhere, people struggling to survive. In my past life, I had been a sheltered, noble daughter in the capital, living comfortably under my parents' protection. Back then, the greatest sorrow in my life was that the man I loved didn't love me back. But only now did I realize what kind of world existed beyond the capital walls. The Dang kingdom had long been weak. If it weren't for Li Juan guarding the border for years, the country would have fallen into endless wars. And yet, even with his efforts, the people still suffered. On the road, I finally understood why Li Juan wanted to rebel. If someone was unfit to rule the world, then someone capable should take their place. I walked over, pulled out the flag bearing the word Jin from the sand table, and firmly planted it on the capital. I, your humble wife, vow to follow the Prince of Jin in restoring order to the realm. A flicker of surprise flashed in his eyes, and then he gently took my hand. The skies in Lihuan aren't as mild as those in the capital. Go put on a warmer coat. On the 7th day after our wedding, the emperor issued a decree summoning us back to the capital. This was the perfect opportunity. Li Juan brought me with him. Outside Guyang Road, I saw my parents and Lu Yu from afar. She was heavily pregnant, leaning against Shin Yuzhou. When she saw me, she spoke with a sour tone. You've got wild ambitions, little sister. Didn't want to marry an ordinary official. Turns out you were aiming for a prince. Shin Yuzhou gave me a look I couldn't decipher. Father was still angry and said nothing. Only mother's eyes brimmed with tears as she asked if I had suffered these days. I smiled and said, "Of course not. His Highness has treated me very well." Back then, rumors in the capital claimed Li Juan was a violent, bloodthirsty demon. But now I knew clearly, those were lies spread by those in power to secure their rule. I understood best what kind of man he really was. After our audience with the emperor, His Majesty nitpicked Li Juan endlessly, even bringing up budget cuts to the military multiple times. Life was already harsh for the soldiers at Lihuan. Li Juan only said a few words in their defense, and the emperor, enraged, smashed a porcelain cup right then and there. Boiling water splashed everywhere. Li Juan instinctively shielded me. The scalding water hit his neck, instantly turning his skin red. But the emperor wasn't satisfied yet. He ordered Li Juan to be flogged with 20 army rods. At that moment, I understood why the emperor had summoned us. It was nothing more than a threat, a warning. All these years, whenever Li Juan came to the capital to report, he always returned covered in injuries. His gaze was calm as he spoke. "Your Majesty, if you must punish me, I have no complaints. But my wife is innocent. To spare her from further distress, please allow her to leave the palace." The emperor, still valuing the Liu family's service across dynasties, waved his hand. "Minister Liu has been loyal for generations. I'll spare her for your sake." I knelt and thanked him, then followed the steward eunuch out of the palace. Only once I was in the carriage did I dare open my palm. Inside lay a tiger tally, the symbol of command over the entire Lihuan army. Li Juan had slipped it to me in the Great Hall. My heart was in turmoil. He had clearly come to the capital prepared to rebel. But something must have gone wrong along the way. The emperor had grown suspicious too soon. To protect me, he had no choice but to send me out first. When I returned to the Liu residence, Mother immediately said, "Sure, your father is waiting for you in the study." Father was always reserved and never discussed political matters with me. But this time, as soon as I entered, he spoke bluntly. "Sure, after your return from Lihuan, it seems His Majesty has murder in his heart." With how wise Father was, of course he had seen through the emperor's intentions. "Father, please help your daughter make a decision." Mother, worried sick, said from the side, "Sure has only just gotten married. Are you trying to make her a widow already?" I knelt down. "Father, if your daughter harbors rebellious intent, would you be willing to stand by my side?" The moment those words left my mouth, both of them were stunned. Mother hastily recited a Buddhist prayer. "Don't say such things. Our Liu family has been officials for generations. If we're accused of treason, we'll be ruined." Father let out a long sigh. Unlike Mother, he wasn't flustered. He just asked, "Have you made up your mind?" This was my only chance. I had to bet everything. I opened my hand and revealed the tiger tally. "Father, please lend me your support." Li Juan's troops were waiting just outside Guyang Road. If I left now and led them into the capital, it would be a just cause. Father was a traditionalist. Despite seeing the suffering of the people in recent years, he still hoped the emperor would one day reclaim his virtue. The study fell into a long silence. Just as I thought he would refuse, father suddenly said, "I've already summoned the servants and horses from the estates. They're waiting outside now." He could not bear to let me face it all alone. With teary eyes, I kowtowed deeply before them both. With the identity of the Liu family as cover, I smoothly arrived at the official road. Li Juan's deputy general had been waiting for a long time. "Princess, how is the prince?" I showed the tiger tally, and immediately, the soldiers knelt. "Are you willing to follow me to rescue Prince Jinan?" This army had been trained by Li Juan himself. Even without the commander, it could still function as usual. We left from the Guiyang official road, and with speed, within 2 hours, we reached outside the city moat. Just in time, we encountered Shun leading his troops to block the way. In this life, he had been leading the army for too long and had already lost the imposing presence of the famous General Shun from the previous life. I sat on my horse and gave him a cold sneer. "Shun, why aren't you at home with your wife and children? What brings you here?" Shun face turned dark. "Lu Shu, I will let you go this time for the sake of your sister. But if you don't lead your troops back now, the crime will fall on Prince Jinan. Don't blame me for being merciless." I ordered my 2 deputies, and with one arrow, the flag of the Imperial Guard was pierced. "Bah, who asked you to show mercy? This time, I wanted your life." With a command, the 2 armies clashed. Shun lacked his former bravery, and when he met me in battle, he seemed hesitant. Soon, he was defeated and tied up. I led my army to break open the city gates to rescue Li Juan. Then, I turned and stabbed my sword into Shun shoulder. This sword was to repay him for the grievances he had caused me in the past. I didn't want his life. I wanted him to watch his family and house fall apart. The emperor had hidden deep in the palace and was already terrified by the momentum. The imperial guards in the palace, having long been lazy, lacked the ability to fight. In just a few moves, they surrendered. When I found Li Juan, he was covered in blood but still holding on, waiting for me. As expected, the woman I chose is no less than a man. I hugged him, my eyes red. In this life, my appearance had been the biggest variable in his rebellion. Without me, he would have already led the army to conquer the capital. The world would change, and a wise ruler would appear. Li Juan comforted me. "Why cry? Everything is over." The emperor had originally planned to take his life. After 20 military lashes, a cup of poisoned wine had already been prepared. He was sure I would come with an army, so he had endured until now. I asked him, "What if I hadn't come?" Li Juan gritted his teeth as he bandaged the wound on his arm. Then he turned to me and said, "I believed you would come." By now, the sky outside the palace gates was slowly beginning to brighten. The dawn was breaking, with a line of white on the horizon. I helped Li Juan out of the palace. His gaze was calm, as if he could see the landscapes of all the 48 states of the dying kingdom. "Lu Shu, although I initially doubted your motives, a young lady leaving the capital to seek her husband in Longuan seemed strange. Once you said you wanted to help me restore order, I believed that you also cared about the world. At first, I had personal desires, but later, I truly cared about the world. In my previous life, Lu Shu was always trapped in trivial emotions. She suffered greatly for a man. But stepping outside this circle, I realized how ridiculous that was. A woman can also accomplish great things just like a man. Why be bound by love?" Li Juan smoothly ascended to the throne, and I successfully became empress, gaining the power I had longed for. My father, in the end, didn't stick to tradition and was willing to pledge allegiance to a wise ruler for me. Though I knew this decision was painful for him. After Li Juan took power, the first thing he did was weaken the Shun family's military power. Although the Shun family retained their titles, they were nothing but empty shells. When Liu heard the news, she cried again and returned to her maternal home. She cried and complained to my father. saying the Shun family was now in ruin and she couldn't even have a hot meal. My mother rolled her eyes. Although their military power has been stripped, it's not like they are starving you or your child. Liu carefully glanced at me. Now that you're empress, can't you speak on our behalf in front of the emperor? Perhaps you don't know, but on the day of the rebellion, your husband's action of protecting the emperor's throne displeased his majesty. My eldest sister had spent her whole life trying to take everything from me, always trying to outdo me. Naturally, she was reluctant to accept this. My father spoke. I've already discussed with General Shun. If the Shun family stays in the capital, it will surely anger His Majesty. It would be better to have them stationed at the border to redeem themselves. My father's petition had already been submitted, and I had seen it yesterday in the Court of Political Affairs. Lihuan didn't comment, probably tacitly agreeing with this approach. After all, there were few capable people to use now. She touched her belly. The child was almost 7 months along. If the Shun family was really sent to the border, she wouldn't be able to endure such hardship. My father can't make such an arrangement. Staying in the capital may not give me great power, but at least it's dignified. If I'm sent to some desolate place, how will I live? I spoke lightly. Your husband was chosen by you. Whether it's hardship or fortune, you must accept it. Besides, you carry the Shun family's child in your womb. Even if you want a divorce, it will be difficult. When I mentioned the word divorce, Liu Yu's expression froze. At this time, if she divorced, she could return to the Liu family and, relying on having an empress sister, could choose another husband in the capital. But if she truly gave birth to this child, she would have no choice but to follow Shinyujo to guard the border. Whether she could return was still uncertain. Before leaving, I patted Liu Yu's shoulder. Think carefully about this issue. A couple of days later, the news of Liu Yu's miscarriage reached the palace. I had already anticipated this outcome. I just didn't expect it to happen so quickly. The miscarriage of Liu Yu was suspicious. It was said that she accidentally fell and immediately started bleeding, losing the child. It had been 7 months, and the baby had already formed into a male fetus. I went to the Shun household to see her, and as soon as I entered, I saw Shinyujo looking lost, his eyes bloodshot. He asked me, "What exactly did you say to you?" After she came back, she was depressed and unhappy. I scolded him. "General Shun, I am the empress of this dynasty. What right do you have to question me?" Shinyujo stared at me, stunned. The wound I inflicted on him during the coup had yet to heal, and he gritted his teeth, his eyes filled with rage. Yu is kind-hearted. She can be scared by the slightest thing. The empress must have said something that made her anxious and caused her to miscarry. Sister, even at this point, you still want to frame me. Truly, you never change. Even if you want a divorce, you want to make Shinyujo the perfect victim in your eyes. I couldn't help but laugh in anger. I should have killed you with that sword that day. Why leave that stupid, pig-like brain on his neck? Liu came out from inside and weakly spoke. "Yujo, don't blame my sister. It was my fault. I was careless, and that's why we lost our child. I can't stay in the Shun household anymore. Let's divorce." The dagger was drawn, wasn't it? In the end, she just wanted to abandon her husband and child because the Shun family was now in decline. Shinyujo firmly disagreed with the divorce. Liu Yu cried, feeling wronged. "I don't want to see you in so much pain, but I can't think of another way to make amends." What a performance. I enjoyed watching it. Shinyujo was about to experience the pain of losing a child in this lifetime. No matter how much Liu Yu insisted on the divorce, Shinyujo tried every way to persuade her, but eventually threatened with death. They put on a dramatic show for several days at their home. Even my father couldn't bear to watch anymore and went to persuade Liu Yu not to cause trouble. But to everyone's surprise, she was determined to leave. Shinyujo loved her so much that, in the end, he chose to let her go. When my mother came to the palace and described this situation to me, she couldn't help but mutter. Liu Yu's thoughts are just like her mother's, always climbing to higher branches. She understood the difficulties of women, but she also knew how to rely on a man's power to rise in the world. When the Shun family was glorious, they had hereditary titles and military achievements that brought them generations of honor. She saw Shun Yuzhou only as a means to climb higher. Now that everything was gone, she naturally wanted to find another wealthy man. I sipped my tea and smiled. Since she is like this, I naturally have to find her a good match with a high status. My mother scolded me. Why bother with someone like her? I didn't answer, but thought of the last time the city fell. I had written several letters to my eldest sister, hoping she would save me and my child out of sisterly affection. But all I got in return was a cruel mockery. You and your child are just two worthless lives, unworthy of saving. At that time, she was in the palace, protected by my husband's imperial guards. Now, the situation had reversed, and I was about to return those words to her. A month later, the Shun family departed to guard the border. Before leaving, Shun Yuzhou knelt outside the Liu residence, unwilling to get up, just to see Liu Yu one last time. But my eldest sister never appeared. She even declared coldly that they would never meet again. That day, it rained heavily in the capital. I sat in the carriage, watching Shun Yuzhou in immense pain. I didn't know why, but the thrill of revenge had completely disappeared. I only felt a deep sadness. Loving someone so humbly, this was how I was in my past life. Lihuan held my hand and gently said, "If you think I've been too harsh with Shun Yuzhou, I can allow him to stay in the capital as an idle marquis." My gaze instantly turned cold. "Your Majesty, there is no need to test me. The Shun family's assignment to the border is a done deal. Any softness now could lead to disaster." Li Juan understood my past with Shun Yuzhou. As an emperor, he could never allow any weakness to be shown. A month later, the Shun family left for the north. Liu Yu had recovered from her miscarriage and frequently came to the palace, claiming to visit me as a sister. I understood her intentions. Now that she was divorced, she was eyeing my position as empress. Li Juan was a diligent ruler, visiting the inner palace only once every 10 days or so. Liu Yu patiently waited for her opportunity. Finally, one day, when Li Juan came to my palace for a brief visit, she saw her chance and performed for him. She insisted on playing a song on the guzheng, Chong Xiang Si. The whole capital knew that Liu Yu was a rare talent in both music and painting. However, after hearing the performance, Li Juan said nothing, only asking, "Has the military funding for Longuan been secured?" I handed him the ledger I had previously compiled from the treasury. "We just need to raid a couple of corrupt officials' estates, and that should be enough." Liu Yu stood aside, still holding the guzheng, silent. At that moment, she understood. The dying kingdom did not need an empress who only knew how to play the guzheng. And Li Juan was not the foolish ruler who only sought the pleasures of music and beauty. Since then, Liu Yu rarely entered the palace. My mother said that she spent her days at home crying, begging my father to intervene and arrange another good marriage for her. But in the capital, no reputable family would want her anymore. My mother spoke with contempt. When she divorced the Shun family, now she can't even find someone to take her in. I really don't know where she gets the audacity. "Don't worry about my sister's marriage. I have already found a good match for her." My mother was surprised. What good son of a family would want to marry her? The second son of the Duke of Yongcheng. My mother laughed. "He's a notorious playboy." I handed her the marriage proposal from the Duke of Yongcheng. What does it matter if he's a playboy? If my sister is willing to marry, that's already climbing up. I knew Liu Yu too well. She didn't care what kind of man her husband was. All she wanted was wealth, status, and power. So when the match was brought to her, she agreed without hesitation. For a woman who had been divorced, marrying a duke's heir was already an incredible stroke of luck. I personally oversaw her wedding and saw her off in the bridal sedan chair. As the bridal veil was placed over her head, I whispered softly in her ear, "Sister, I hope your future days go as you wish. You'll stay in this courtyard, holding on to the title of a marquis's wife, dealing with a pile of troublesome matters, trying to hold your husband's heart, and fighting with concubines." Though she was unwilling, she still kept up a tough front. "Sister, my fate is not as good as yours." Lu Yu blamed everything on fate. But what she didn't understand was that it was never fate that decides one's life. The sound of the Suona horn played, and the procession of red decorations passed through the streets. My sister and I had always lived opposite lives. I had given her choices, but she still willingly jumped into this deep, fiery pit. In the end, no one could save her. After Lu Yu's wedding, I personally wrote a letter. It was sent urgently to the northern frontier, 800 miles away. Such a joyful event should be known by Shun as soon as possible. The person he once loved most is now married to someone else. It felt satisfying thinking about it. As I had predicted, after Lu Yu's marriage, she was overwhelmed by the intrigues within the household. Aside from the title of Marquis's wife, she gained nothing. The Duke of Yongcheng had a legitimate son to support the family. The second son was a notorious playboy, known throughout the capital for his antics. She forced herself to keep up appearances, but every time she came to the palace, her exhaustion was visibly apparent. Within months of her marriage to the Duke's house, she seemed to have aged 10 years. In the presence of other noble women, she forced a smile, but perhaps she asked for too much, and in the end, she couldn't hold on to anything. Not long after, Lihuan received a report from the frontier. Shun had died in battle. Longguan was already a harsh, cold place, and he had suffered one blow after another, with his health deteriorating. During a battle between the two armies, he was ambushed and killed by a sword strike as he fell from his horse. By the time the news reached the capital, I was already pregnant. I touched my belly and softly said, "Since the Shun family has no heirs, there is no need for the hereditary title to be passed down. Other family members should be treated generously instead." The palace eunuch, who had been tasked with delivering the message, answered, "The emperor has the same intention." For 5 years, Lihuan had purged the court, alleviated the burdens on the people, and stabilized the frontier. Under his diligent rule, the Great Ing dynasty was slowly improving. 5 years later, at the grand ceremony on the stargazing platform, I ascended the altar with him. The officials below shouted, "Long live the emperor," 3 times. From then on, the seas were calm, and the world was at peace. The end.